Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching NDTV. It's the oldest rule in the book. If you hold public office, avoid conflict of interest. A day after BJP MP Nishikant Dubey raised massive allegations against TMC MP Mahua Moitra that she had taken bribes from businessman Darshan Hiranandani in exchange for asking questions targeting the Adani Group and Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the Parliament, Union Minister of State for Information Technology Rajeev Chandrasekhar today weighed in on this alleged cash for questions controversy. Mr. Chandrasekhar cited questions that Ms. Moitra had asked about reports of a government ban on 59 apps, localization requirements of sensitive personal data and data leakages. And he said that the language she had used was similar to the one used by the same company when he had met the company's heads. In a post on X, however, Mahua Moitra declared that it was a valid question since she is a member of the Joint Parliamentary Committee on Data Protection. Mr. Chandrasekhar posted on X that he had learned from news reports that this parliamentary question was likely asked by an MP at the behest of a data center company, and if those reports were true, it was indeed shocking and shameful. He also wrote on X that it is true that this company was actively and aggressively lobbying for data localization. He also said that he was not completely aware or privy to the full facts or background on this, but if these allegations are true, then it is a terrible misuse of parliamentary questions. Ms. Moitra has been accused of asking parliamentary questions on the behalf of the Hiranandani Group that has lost out to Adani Group. When it comes to major projects, she had said on Twitter that she would welcome any probe as long as others are probed first. What we understand from our sources is that Hiranandani Group has been trying to get the first mover advantage when it comes to data localization. Data localization, as we understand, is an essential part of the government's flagship Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme, and a lot of care has been taken by the government to prevent any monopoly in this area. Sources said that Hiranandani Group has also raised questions about the contracts from the IT ministry, but the ministry had not complied with their request. Days later, the questions that Ms. Moitra asked was whether the government had indeed banned all 54 apps, and if so, what were the details. She had also questioned whether app and data leakages of Indian citizens may happen from other countries and the details. She had also questioned whether there would be data localization requirements for all sensitive personal data while Data Protection Act was still under consideration, and also all their details. Now, let's remember that BJP MP Nishikant Dubey has also written to Electronics and IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav earlier this day, seeking an investigation to check if Ms. Moitra's Lok Sabha account was accessed from any location where she was not present. In response, Ms. Moitra has said parliamentary work of MPs is done by large teams, and she also said that the IT minister must release location and login details of all MPs. Remember, Mr. Dubey's letter to the Speaker was based on a complaint flagged by Delhi-based lawyer Jai Anand Yadre to the CBI, where he had claimed that 50 of the 61 questions that Ms. Moitra had asked were either targeted at the Adani Group or meant to perpetuate the interests of the Hiranandani Group. So a lot has happened since Nishikant Dubey complained to the Speaker yesterday. Let me go across to my colleague Akhilesh Sharma to understand these recent developments. Akhilesh, so the IT MOS has revealed that the Hiranandani Group was pushing for data localization, and they said that the group was pushing for it aggressively. The language that they used was also very similar to the language used by TMC MP Mahua Moitra in her questions. Tell us, what exactly is this allegation all about?
Well, it's very serious, Vasudha, now since the minister himself has come on record and in fact confirming what Mr. Nishikant Dubey has been alleging, saying that, whatever Mahua Moitra was asking, the parliamentary questions, they were similar to what this group of Hiranandani Group was, wanted her to ask, or what was related to the business interests of this group. So, in a way, Mr. Chandrasekhar, when he says in a post on the platform X, where he says very clearly that, the language was similar of this business head of that of the question asked by Mahua Moitra in the Lok Sabha. So it in a way confirms whatever Mr. Nishikant Dubey is saying. So it's a very serious matter now. In fact, our senior minister confirming what Mr. Nishikant Dubey is saying. Though he's not going into the details of the other allegation, is saying that if it's true, then of course it raises various questions, serious questions on the propriety and also the moral and ethics of a member of parliament asking questions on behalf of any business house. And that is what exactly Mr. Nishikant Dubey has alleged in his letter to the Speaker, which was written yesterday. And today, the Speaker office has confirmed that they are in receipt of this letter written by Mr. Nishikant Dubey, and they are going into the allegations and various facts which have been mentioned in this letter. And after scrutinizing this letter, they will take the final call whether to refer this letter to the Ethics Committee of the Lok Sabha or form a separate committee, independent committee, to probe the allegations made by Mr. Nishikant Dubey as demanded by him. So this is a very serious matter now. And also another minister, senior minister is involved now, because Mr. Nishikant Dubey has addressed this letter, today's letter, to Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav, who is the IT minister, and Mr. Dubey has demanded that, the IT ministry should go into, through NIC, the National Informatics Center, into the allegation that the access of Lok Sabha portal by Mahua Moitra was misused by some other corporate entities on some other location where she was not present. So it's also a very serious matter. So these two developments today are very important and significant.
Yes. Akhilesh, I also wanted to talk about this complaint to IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav. How is it different from what the IT MOS has raised? Because these are clearly different issues. One is about the location of her server or her IP address, and how she's, probably, outsourced the use of her login to some other person. This is what is being alleged, by the way. And of course, what MOS Rajeev Chandrasekhar is saying. Tell us, what is the difference between the two, and is the IT ministry also looking into these allegations?
Well, these two are separate matters. Mr. Chandrasekhar is confirming that whatever question was asked by Mahua Moitra was, in fact, the language was similar when the business head had a meeting with him. And the second part is that Mr. Nishikant Dubey has written to Mr. Vaishnav asking that, the NIC should probe the details of the login of Mrs. Mahua Moitra, whether at the time when the login was happening, whether she was present at the location or not. In fact, when Mahua Moitra replies on Mr. Chandrasekhar tweet today, she does not deny this allegation. She in fact mentions that there are some other MPs also, and she also says that an MP has a large staff. There are various staffs assisting her or him, and that's why she is saying that she's not denying in fact that whether she was not present at that time when the login was taking place or not. And it's a serious matter because out of 61 questions which are asked, 50 are related to the business rivals or the corporate houses which she is alleged that she was working for. So that is why this matter is very serious, and Nishikant Dubey has written this second letter to Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav, and asking that this should be probed by the NIC.
Akhilesh, you've been covering the Parliament for so long. Tell us, what kind of cases of probity and propriety of MPs have you seen, and what is the magnitude of this case, and why does it need to be taken so seriously?
Well, in 2005, in December, when a sting operation was done on 11 MPs, 10 from Lok Sabha and 1 from Rajya Sabha, a special committee by the Parliament was constituted. And in fact, I remember majority of the MPs were belonging to the BJP. Despite that fact, Mr. L.K. Adani, who was the leader at that point of time, insisted that strong action should be taken by this committee. And committee was formed under the leadership of Congress leader Pawan Kumar Bansal. The committee completed this investigation within 10-12 days and came up with the recommendation that all these 11 MPs should be disqualified. And the entire House supported, because they thought that taking money or favor for asking a question which is a privilege of any MP is actually does not behold of the morality which is expected from an MP. And that is why all these 10 MPs from Lok Sabha were disqualified. Delhi police launched investigation and filed charge sheet, and now the trial is on in the special court of the Delhi police. So similarly, when any leader becomes member of either of the house, he or she is expected to disclose the conflict of interest, and also disclose in Rajya Sabha, maintain a register where you have to make an entry about your business, corporate, or any perks you are getting from some other entity. And that register is not for public. But in Lok Sabha also, if some similar complaint is received, then the matter is obviously referred to the Ethics Committee.
Right. Thank you, Akhilesh. That was my colleague Akhilesh Sharma talking to us about the latest developments in this case, and also how MPs are obligated to declare their business interests in the Parliament. We also have N.S. Nappinai, who's the founder of Cyber Sathi Foundation and also a lawyer in the Supreme Court. Thank you so much for speaking to us, ma'am. Can you explain the data localization aspect in this case, and how critical was data localization, and were there actually attempts made by the government to stall any kind of monopoly in this space?
The data localization story actually goes a long way back. where when the first personal data protection draft was suggested in 2018, the issue arose in terms of whether the draft should include data localization provisions. So if you go to the 2019 draft, it actually included localization of what was categorized. After that, you had sectoral regulations such as RBI saying that you have to localize data which is pertaining to financial data within India. So broadly, what data localization means is certain kinds of personal data will not be transferred outside the boundaries of India if it pertains to Indian citizens or residents. That's all it means in very simplistic terms. So the issue today is the Personal Data Protection Act, which has now been passed, does not have data localization provisions. We are still waiting to see whether more sectoral regulations will come up in certain kinds of specific forms of data. So given this situation, the issue that appears to be in hand right now is on whether there should be a more stringent data localization provision, at least for certain kinds of data, if not all kinds of data, and how and in what manner a law to that effect will function.
Right. Ma'am, were there companies actually pushing for data localization to happen soon? And were they also trying to override some of the checks and balances that the government was probably trying to bring in?
See, it's a double-edged sword because on one hand, when you bring in data localization, you run the risk of other nations also closing borders with respect to their data. And we need international data flows to keep businesses robust. But the flip side of it is if you create a data localization regime, then the assumption was that Indian businesses will grow, evolve, and flourish. So, particularly startups. So, whether this is something that was necessary, is it something that's being driven by industry, or is it something that should evolve organically? Is therefore a moot issue. What is the situation today in terms of law? Broadly across the world, free flow of data is what is encouraged. But having said that, Europe or European Union, I would say specifically, which is the only one which passed a regulation with respect to free flow of data, also has restrictions in terms of where and to what nations data can flow. So what they do is they do it like a white list of approved nations. So only those nations which the European Union believes has laws which are on par with the EU would receive EU data. So when you look at it in that perspective, there is some form of data localization even when it comes to the EU laws. When it comes to India, we need to see whether we are going to do what the RBI did of saying a particular kind or vertical of data is going to be localized, or is it going to be free flow of data, but maybe possibly bring in a whitelist regime or with no holds barred. Right. So at this juncture, any kind of conversation or debate is a very critical issue.
Right. So, ma'am, with regard to this story, there are also allegations that one MP, in this case Mahua Moitra's account, was used by somebody else sitting outside India. So, the other MP, which is Nishikant Dubey of the BJP, has demanded an inquiry committee and also has demanded an inquiry into her IP address to see if somebody else was using this, using her login. So, what kind of threats does that pose to our own internal security systems, because these are MPs, and while it is understood that MPs also have large teams, and this is something Ms. Moitra has said, can you tell us, is this actually a threat to security, and do we need to take care of this?
So there are a couple of things in this aspect. The first and foremost is the terms and conditions based on which the login ID and password are given to a member of parliament will really decide what is the extent to which an MP can share those credentials with a third party. Even if it is within their own team, the terms and conditions will decide that. So here is the situation. I cannot really answer off the cuff in terms of what are the terms and conditions based on which a member of parliament receives these login credentials. Having said that, if the terms and conditions limit it only to the member of parliament, it literally means only to the Member of Parliament. If there has to be some leeway in terms of a sign-in through a team member, then it requires that the terms and conditions give that leeway. Without that, if there is a violation of those terms, then Lok Sabha will be within its right to act. I think the probe will give us a lot more information, but broadly it boils down to two things. One is the contractual terms, which the Lok Sabha is within its right to enforce, but two, the larger issue which you rightly spotlighted, which is the issue of cybersecurity or security in terms of what is the confidentiality aspect of a parliamentary debate and to what extent can it be shared. If it is already within public domain, if there was no dishonest or fraudulent intent in terms of sharing of login credentials, then the entire focus may change. So it then boils down only to a contractual breach and not to a criminal breach or a breach of security aspect. So the mode and manner in which a particular provision is given to you, a particular privilege is given to you, and what are the limitations and restrictions that the Lok Sabha have placed, that will play a key role in this aspect.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Napinay, founder of Cybersathi Foundation, for making those critical points. Thank you so much for speaking to us. So there are questions being raised on Ms. Moitra's conduct. Of course, while these are in the realm of allegations, it will be interesting to see if the Speaker takes cognizance of the complaint, of Nishikant Dubey's complaint, and the kind of repercussions it may have. To talk about the magnitude of this case and the questions it raises with us, joining us now is Mr. Satyapal Jain, former MP and current ASG of India in the Punjab and Haryana High Court. Thank you, Mr. Jain, for speaking with us. So members of parliament are also private individuals with stakes in different types of businesses and professions. Can you tell us what is expected of the MPs when it comes to personal and public dealings? There is, of course, a code of conduct in place since the 90s for all MPs, but are all MPs expected to follow them?
See, the privilege given to the members of parliament are manifold, and one of them is a very important privilege, that you can ask any question from the government, and the government is bound to almost all answer to all your questions relating to the foreign policy, internal policy on any issue. And wherever this privilege has been given, the MPs are also expected to respond to that and exercise their discretion in a manner which is for the welfare of the country and the people. This has been done for the last so many years back, when a string operation was done by TV channel, noting certain MPs getting money for asking questions, etc. Ultimately, all of them were expelled from the membership of the House. So I think if any member of parliament misuses or exploits this right to the detriment of the nation, to the country, to the privileges of the MPs, it is within the competence of the parliament, on the recommendation of the privilege committee or any special committee, to take action against that particular MP. See, we are in public life. We are representing, the MPs are representing the entire nation, and one single MP represents about 10 to 15, 20 lakhs of people. If your conduct comes under doubt, if there are allegations level against you that you are asking questions by accepting bribe and money, it's a very, very serious manner. See, let me make it very clear. I am not aware of the fact whether the allegations are true or not. Those will be examined by the concerned authority.
Yes.
Mr. Nishikant Dubey is a member of parliament. He has given in writing against another member of parliament. So there must be some agency which ultimately will be decided by the speaker to determine the allegations. But if the allegations are true, I think it is unbecoming of a member of parliament to ask any question on the asking of somebody else, or by taking some bribe, profit, gift, whatever it is. It's a very, very unfortunate act on the part of any member of parliament.
So can you take us through the process now? I understand that the Ethics Committee of the Parliament gets reconstituted every year, but does the Speaker send every complaint to the Ethics Committee, and can the Speaker on his own set up the inquiry committee, or the Ethics Committee has to decide that?
See, this complaint has been sent in writing to the Speaker. So first it will be the wisdom of the Speaker, it will be the discretion of the Speaker to decide as to how he has to proceed for investigating the matter. he can send it to the Privilege Committee, Ethics Committee, and the committee which consists of the representative of all the political parties. They will call the MPs, they will call the members of the members belonging to the party which has leveled these allegations, the complainant, the person against whom allegations have been leveled. They will call them and they will submit its report. If this ordinarily, when a complaint is made to the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, such type of complaint, ordinarily Speaker refers it to a committee, Ethics Committee, Privilege Committee, or he has the discretion to formulate a special committee also for investigating the matter. That all falls within the jurisdiction, wisdom of the Speaker. So let us see how does the Speaker decide. And then on the recommendation of that committee, again it comes to the full House. It is the full House which will take a decision.
Right.
You might recall in the case of earlier, about 10, 12 MPs who were caught on camera while accepting money for asking questions. Ultimately, it was the Lok Sabha which decided to expel them from the membership of the House.
Right. So, sir, even in this 2005 case that you're talking about, when the cash for query controversy had rocked the parliament, even then opposition leaders then, such as late Arun Jaitley and Sushma Swaraj, while agreeing with the merit of the case, had talked about expulsion of MPs from the parliament being too much. Mr. Jaitley had specifically talked about how this could actually set a bad precedent for parties to bring down wafer-thin governments. So do you agree that people, or maybe courts, but not the parliament, need to have the final say when it comes to an MP's future, specifically those who are accused of serious charges?
You see, these two questions are very serious questions. They basically concerns the working of the legislature, the democratic working and all that. It is a fact that ultimately final decision rests with the public.
Right.
They have to take a decision whether to re-elect a person or not. But in case an MP does something which violates the code of conduct, the ethics, and it is unbecoming of a member, then the Parliament Privilege Committee, on the recommendation of which Parliament has the power to take a decision. It has done so in a number of cases earlier. And even in that Supreme Court case, 5 members case, which has now been referred to a 7 judges bench by the Honorable Supreme Court, P.V. Narasimha Rao's case, where the Supreme Court had said that if you accept bribe outside the House for voting on the floor of the House, and you vote accordingly, then it's not an offense. That issue has also been referred to a larger bench. And if the Supreme Court says asking question by taking money is a bribe, it falls under the Prevention of Corruption Act, then even the criminal action can also be initiated against an MP who takes money for asking question.
So what is the sanctity of parliament questions? Because that is something that even Rajeev Chandrasekhar talked about today. What kind of questions are MPs expected to ask? Are they obligated to center it around their constituency or the policies that can impact the people of their constituencies?
See, when you become a member of parliament or MLA or anything else in the MLC or Rajya Sabha and all that, this is a privilege given to you. And as a member of parliament, as a literate, well-aware and very responsible member of the society, you are supposed to draft your questions, keeping in view the larger interests of the country, of the nation, of the people. And there are guidelines which are available for the MPs that you will not put such type of questions. You will put your questions in this direction and all that. It can be concerning your constituency also. For example, you want to know whether a particular hospital is being constructed or not, whether a college is being done or not. You have the right to ask about the foreign policy also, about the commerce policy also. You have the right to ask about the other different issues also. You have the right to ask questions, but you are expected to do it by taking your own conscience into consideration, keeping the national interest and the public interest in order. There have been a number of cases when a question put up by a member of parliament, by the draw of lots, it's come number 1, 2, or among the 20 questions which have to be tabled on the Lok Sabha, on the House, floor of the House. Then if something is objectionable, which is detrimental to the interest of the nation, then it is the Lok Sabha Secretariat which points you out that please don't put this question. You can't put a question which may embarrass the country in the eyes of the whole world. So it is on your perception, your vision, your wisdom that you ask questions. You can ask questions which are not to the liking of the government. The government may not like. But the basic question is, are you asking the question with a view to get information and knowledge? Or you are asking a question at the asking of somebody else whose business
Right.
interests are there, who have a axe to grind in the reply or in the question, or it's a very, very serious thing if you are asking a question by getting money, bribe, or gift. If it is so, I think it is very, very shameful. And such a member, his conduct is unbecoming of the member of the House.
Right. Sir, in this case, an MP who's vocal against the government is being accused of taking favors from a business group and acting at the behest of the group to ask questions against another group. I know you've touched upon this, but can you explain to us the magnitude of the complaint and the seriousness of the charges against Mahua Moitra, and what kind of questions does it raise?
See, as I said in the earlier part, I have not seen the letter written by Mr. Nishikant Dubey to the speaker, but I have read it in the newspapers and media. If the allegations are true, I am saying if the allegations are true, then it's a very, very serious matter. And prima facie, as a lawyer, I can say that these are not the allegations which you can just rub aside by saying, no, inme kuch nahi hai, kuch nahi hai. These are the allegations which need proof. Her point of view will also be taken, should be taken. The complainant should also be asked by the speaker and the committee to come forward with the documents, because it's intriguing. It's surprising, shocking that you are putting questions which relate to only one main business center or family. After all, you have to explain why are you doing so. If you, for example, today ask a policy about the cotton policy of the government of India, tomorrow you say what are you doing in the jute matter. Day after tomorrow you say what are you doing for installing the industry in the hill areas. One can understand that. But asking question after question, question after question, qua one family only, which benefits one particular family, to my mind are very, very serious allegations. But as I said earlier, principles of natural justice demand that the person concerned should be called by the committee, ask her version, and after weighing both the complaint and her version, the committee submits its report.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Jain. So that was Satyapal Jain, ASG and former MP, talking to NDTV about the magnitude of the allegations raised by MP Nishikant Dubey and also IT MOS Rajeev Chandrasekhar against Mahua Moitra today. That's all the time we have for you in the news break.